Okay, welcome to 1000 Ways to be a Champion for Children. I am very honored today that we have a guest, Martin Parnell, and he is a black belt champion for children. He is a Guinness Book World Record. He is an author. This guy's amazing. How many marathons did you run in 1 year? It was like 150 or something.
It was 250, Alan, in 1 year.
250.
5 a week for a year.
That is incredible. My goodness. So Martin, I know that you are like so actively involved making a difference for kids, especially with your right to play and all your involvement with right to play. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me on tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is a topic extremely close to my heart. And really, I want to go back to 2005. And I decided to do a cycle trip across Africa. I was looking to do something different. I wanted a bit of adventure. And I'd read about this group called Tour d'Afrique, who the year before had cycled from Cairo to Cape Town. I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, I cycle, but I'm not a big cyclist. But I thought that sounds amazing. Wouldn't it be, 4 months? Wouldn't it be amazing to go across a continent and just live for 4 months with the people of the country? And so I signed up. The good news was that every night we would head off, and if you didn't make the campground, at the end of the day, a truck would come and pick you up. So I knew there was no there was no downside. If I didn't make the cycling, a truck would pick me up. So I signed up, and in middle of January of 2005, I flew to Cairo, and I met 30 other men and women from all over the world, and we started cycling. Just a bunch of us got on our bikes and headed out of Cairo, past the pyramids, and it was just an incredible sight. And for 2 weeks, we cycled through Egypt, and the roads are superb, great roads in Egypt. And we got to the lake, the Nasser Lake, and we crossed it in an open barge, 2 days, 2 nights, in an open barge. And we ended up in Wadi Hafi, which is a port in the Sudan. And for the next 2 weeks, we cycled through the Sudan on sand roads. And it was a grind. It was a tough go. And we were really getting acclimatized to the country, to the conditions. And then we entered Ethiopia. Beautiful country, little better conditions on the roads, dusty roads with gravel. And I was usually at the back, Alan. I'm not a fast cyclist, so I was at the back of the pack, and all the other cyclists were ahead of me. And one morning, I'm cycling down a hill, coming into a little village, and I saw 2 boys, young lads, 8, 9, playing table tennis, and on a rickety table with just kind of, pretty rough looking bats. And I love table tennis. I got to be honest. I was pretty good as a youngster. I won the national championship for my youth club. I'm not bad, Alan. Yeah, I enjoy the game. So
good to know. I'm not going to challenge you to a table tennis game. Yeah.
So I jumped off my bike, and I just walked over, and I just did this to one of the boys, and he gave me the table tennis bat. And I started playing. I just started playing a table tennis, and within 5 minutes, there was 100 kids, boys and girls, had come out from the fields, come out from the shacks with the tin roofs. They came out, and they were cheering and yelling, and I didn't say a word. Like I couldn't speak the language, but we could play a game. And so I played for half an hour, and he beat me. He beat me 2 games to 1. This young lad, I think he must have been the under 10 national champion of table tennis, but we had a great game. And, it was just a feeling of my spirit soared when I saw the joy that these children had in doing a sport and just doing something where I kind of was with them as an equal. I wasn't over them, or we played a game together. And at the end, I waved goodbye. And I mean, they must have wondered, who had landed. I had my big crash helmet, my big sunglasses. I had my my bike shirt, which had a moose on it, which I think they must have wondered what a moose was. Spandex shorts. I think they must have thought aliens have landed, and
probably, yeah, exactly.
Trying to take over the world, one table tennis game at a time. Yeah. But it just stuck with me. And I left, and I waved to them, and they waved back. And as I did my trip through Africa, I ended up playing a lot of sports with kids, playing more table tennis and running and basketball. And what struck me after that 4-month trip wasn't so much such of the beauty of the continent, and obviously the Rift Valley and Kilimanjaro and so on, but it was the spirit of the children when you engage with them, when you're not telling them what to do or coming down in an authoritative way, but you're sharing with them. And that was the number one thing that stuck with me during that 4-month trip, was the time I spent hearing those children cheering and really living for the moment where their conditions are pretty tough, absolutely tough. So I came back, and a couple of years went by. I really didn't know what to do with it, and I started doing more running and more Ironman and ultra running and so on. And then I heard about an organization called Right to Play, and Right to Play have 20 countries around the world where they support children through play and sport, and they teach them life skills, conflict resolution, leadership objectives, and they do an amazing job around the world. And so I wanted to give back. I thought, surely I can do something. So that's when I decided to attempt to run 250 marathons in 1 year and try and raise $250,000 for the children's organization Right to Play.
That is incredible. Did you raise the $250,000, by the way?
Well, funny you should ask that, Alan. So it was a long year. I started on January the 1st, 2010. And my wife, Sue, she supported me and said, Martin, best of luck. Let's see how this goes. So I started running 5 marathons a week. I ran 30 marathons, so over sort of a month, or just a month and a half. Then I got injured for 2 weeks. I thought that's the end of that, but I managed to get going. And through the year, I ran locally in Cochrane and Calgary on the pathways. But every week, Alan, I would go to a school in the Cochrane or Calgary area, and I would run 100 times around their soccer field.
No.
So I start in the morning, 100 times around the soccer field. And in the morning, the kids would come and they would run 2 loops with me. So they'd join me and they'd chat. And this is kindergarten to grade 12. And they'd talk to me. And then they'd go in after the 2 loops, and they'd keep running. They'd keep going during the morning, and they'd wave at me and I'd wave back. Lunchtime, they'd come out and they would run 2 more loops, the lunchtime loops. But what I really loved is at lunchtime, they would bring me apples and carrots and Snickers bars. I mean, I was like a running guinea pig. I was their pet for the day. And so nice. 2 more loops, they'd go back in at lunchtime, and I'd keep going round and around. I'd wave, they'd wave back. And at the end of the day, they would come out and they would run the final 2 loops of the 100 with me.
Nice.
And we would finish, and they would cheer and yell, and it was just amazing. But what really blew me away was at the end of that day, they would give me their loony and toony pocket money. Oh. I would talk to them before I would head out in the morning about Right to Play, but also about how fortunate they were and we are with their homes, with their schools, how they live, versus other children who have to walk 6 hours and wait 6 hours to get water, or they have to do a job, of menial labor, and they can't go to school. And it really resonates with kids. Kids get it. They don't have the baggage many times that we have as adults. They just see unfairness and injustice, and they want to do something about it. So at the end of each of these runs, as I say, they would bring me their loony, toonies, $5 to help Right to Play. And over the year, Alan, I ran at 60 schools with over 12,000 students and children. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And so by the end of the year, on December 31st, 2010, I had done the 250 marathons, and we ended up raising $320,000.
Woohoo! That's amazing.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And that helped 27,000 children around the world. And again, I could have had the worst week of running marathons, but when I went to a school, didn't matter if it was kindergarten or grade 12s, it didn't matter. It lifted my spirits, and it helped me keep going for the next week. And so those children actually motivated me and raised my spirits. And so it was an amazing experience.
What an incredible story. My goodness. Well, like, first of all, your experience in Africa, where a little bit of table tennis kind of bridges all the differences, right? Bridges the difference in language or religion or culture or anything else, just playing a little bit of table tennis. That's awesome. And then also your ability, your talents, that you could share that with all these kids. And then in so doing, like, they responded with their empathy for little people in other countries who don't have anything near what they have, right? So
well, I think, Alan, we've got to connect with children, and we have to give them credit. We have to challenge them to step up, and they will. If we're clear and we can communicate with them, then they will step up and they will take action. And as I say, whether it's a kindergarten up to grade 12, all of them, once they could see what was going on, they could see how others were being dealt with in a very unfair way, they wanted to do something. And, as you know, I mean, we're both Rotarians. That's the ethos of Rotary, service above self.
Yeah.
And that is, that isn't for a certain demographic. That's for everybody. And everybody can make a difference.
Yes, definitely. I didn't tell you this before, but this program, what we're trying to do is basically increase awareness about adverse childhood experiences, because there are basically 10 things that are classified as adverse childhood experiences, and going unchecked, they lead to very negative life consequence, very negative health consequences. So encourage adult survivors of childhood trauma to, seek redress or seek solutions, or at least revisit that to see if they can minimize what they might have experienced at that time, and then prevent for children today, if any way possible, that we could prevent them from having adverse childhood experiences, and also assist them in building resilience. Sport, huge thing for building resilience, right? 2 weeks ago, I had this young woman, and she has a martial arts studio, and that's basically her tool to build resilience and to have recovery, to get healing from childhood trauma. So it was, it's kind of aligning exactly with what you're talking about. When you're talking about children and you're talking about them, noting this sense of fairness, you and I are making this broadcast from the ancestral homes of the Blackfoot people. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about unfairness, man, people that look like you and I, certainly for 150 years, tried to destroy that culture of First Nations people. And in so doing, we've exacerbated adverse childhood experiences generation on generation on generation. So, man, they're, if we need to right some unfairness, certainly that's an arena where we need to put more time and attention to. But through Right to Play, there's a program specifically about that, correct?
Yeah, there is, Alan. And as I mentioned, I've been involved with Right to Play now for just over 11 years. And what's happened is their focus for a number of years was overseas, and you totally understand that, helping in 20 countries. And doing a tremendous job. But then they decided that they wanted to use these lessons learned and see if there was an interest in the Indigenous communities across Canada. And over a number of years, they have worked in pretty much all provinces across Canada, and are now in 90 communities where they work with elders and groups in the communities. And they've developed a program called Play, promoting life skills in Aboriginal youth. And it's an amazing program involving the youth, involving Right to Play, involving liaison partners within the communities. And it's had a huge impact in the communities where they're working. And so I'm super proud of what Right to Play has done, both on an international scale, but also in Indigenous communities within Canada. And I think this is, I believe it's a model. I think that's something that can grow to even bigger ways. And so this is just part, I think, of the picture where we can all make a difference. I think that's one of the key things. It's not it's not like, oh, well, I can do nothing. Yes, you can do something. You just need to find out, and you need to be vulnerable and open to helping. And I think that's one thing that we've got to remember. We're just on this earth for a short time, and it's going to pass pretty quickly. I remember when I was 20. I'm not 20 anymore, but we can all still do something, and I think that's the point. And by communicating like we are today, we're sharing. My gosh, there's so many other challenges. I mean, we're in the middle of this COVID. I mean, that's just an incredible challenge. But the other challenges are still going on. Because we got COVID doesn't mean the other things stop. And in some ways, they could be even worse. So we've sort of got to double our effort here, Alan. I think, and again, as Rotarians, that's what we do.
Yeah, I agree entirely. When you're talking about, COVID exacerbating situations, you think about an abuser and an abused in a household, and that abuser no longer leaves the household because they don't have a job, and that abused doesn't leave because they don't go to school. Like, wow, that's a very tough situation. Yeah. Wow. I know that when you talk about, we can make a difference, and all of us can, for sure. My last week, I had this lovely woman, Crystal Morris, on, and Crystal and her agency is called One Caring Adult, is what it is. And so and really what I hope that we can achieve is we can get people who have a skill set. In your case, sport is your thing, sport and fitness and running is your thing. But when you talk about the play, that organization for Aboriginal kids, well, then there's adults involved in that, caring adults that are part of that program. And man, one adult who makes a difference in the trajectory of one person's life might affect 20, 30 people, right? The people that they have relationships with, that they might have children with, that they might be parents of, their employment relationships, their relationships with their other family members. One making a difference in one person's life has a huge cascading effect.
Alan, we must never forget the ripple effect. Whatever we do, good or bad, it has ripples effect beyond what we will ever know. So again, just don't think it's one action deems one outcome. One action will have multiple outcomes, whether it's a good action or a bad action. And quite frankly, and I think we have to be quite proactive here. You can't sit on the sidelines, in my mind, to be honest. I mean, I think personally speaking, I've done that in the past. Kind of sit on the sidelines, let others do it, let others get on with it. Well, I think for me, as I get older, I realize that it's just not acceptable. It's just not the right thing to do. And whether I'm with Rotary or not with Rotary, it doesn't really matter from where I'm at. I just think we've got to step forward and we've got to make a difference. One thing that I did a number of years ago was a TEDx presentation, and the title was "Life is a Relay." And really, what it was about was when the relay starts, you burst out of the blocks, and it's just like all of us, when we're born and when we get going, a lot of enthusiasm. I think we all have that dream, that kind of I think everybody does, right? Let's do something. But then that kind of, you get going, and then you're in the kind of the middle part of the race where you're learning things are happening. But then as you approach the finish line in a relay, you've got the baton. And the key there is a successful passing of the baton. And I think what you're talking about today with your show here and what we're dealing with is we have to pass the baton. And that's our legacy. That's what we have to do as we go through life, Alan. And I really feel, that's how I look at things. How can I help others? What can I do to improve the lives of others? Whatever happens to me, happens to me. I mean, I'm just a kind of a cog in the wheel. But if I can help somebody and make their day a little better, especially a youngster who's having a tough time, well, that's what it's all about. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And this is for guys like you and I, not guys, people like you and I, where COVID, as an example, it hasn't harmed me in any way. It's been a good thing for me because I had more time on my hands. I've been doing a lot of professional or personal development and growth and those kind of things. It's been awesome. So for guys like us who have our needs met, now it's a opportune time for us to give back, to support where we can. And, just thinking on the math on the little people again, helping little people today, and maybe making a difference for the many decades in their life, and also making our society composed of people who are better capable of living good lives and of enjoying a good life, and are more linked into the peace and love, joy and gratitude aspects of our existence, right? That I think there's huge value that we can do for little people and for ourselves.
Alan, I've got my wife and I have 3 grandchildren, a granddaughter Autumn who's 17, and we have 2 grandboys, 2 grandsons, Nathan who's 11 and Matthew who's 6. And they're in Ottawa, so it's tricky, it's tough times. But one thing that happened was during COVID, because obviously we can't visit, it's such a difficult time. And my grandson Nathan, he's a huge fan of Mount Everest. He's studied Everest. He knows the pathway up, or the different routes. He knows the different camping locations on the way up. And so we were chatting about Everest, and I came up with the idea of, well, why don't we climb Everest? Why don't we do a virtual climb of Everest? And from base camp, which is 17,600 feet, to the top, which is just over 29,000, is about 11,500 feet. So we came up with the idea of actually climbing up and down our basement stairs. And if you do that 14 times in a day, that's 200 feet. And that means that it would take you 95 days to climb Mount Everest if every day you did the 14 up and down. So myself, my wife Sue, and Nathan and his mum, every morning they were in Ottawa, we were here, they'd go up and down. And so we would write a journal together. We actually wrote a journal as if we were climbing the mountain. But what was very interesting, what happened is he was reading about Everest, and he read that the Sherpas had lost their jobs. Everest was closed on March the 15th, and the Sherpas and their families and friends, they had no work. They had nothing. They don't get support. There's nobody giving them anything to help. And so Nathan said, can we help? Is there anything we can do? So I Googled, helping the Sherpas, and I found a fellow called Sherpa Jan Chang, and we connected and we did a fundraiser, and Nathan raised, through social media and getting other people to do it, $2,000.
Woohoo!
Now that wouldn't have happened without COVID. No way. We wouldn't have done that. So I think you're right. COVID is causing a lot of constrictions, a lot of things we can't do, but we mustn't blinker ourselves to that. We've got to be creative. We got to think, what can we do? What, can we go outside? Can we do something? Can we walk 3K a day? What can we do? It's not easy. Let's be clear. The mental health challenges right now for everybody are very difficult. But there was just an example, Alan, of just, linking with my grandson. And we did a little project for 3.5 months. And it was pretty amazing. And I think, again, let's be creative. How can we help? What can we do? That's my number one question wherever I go, whether it's Right to Play or when I go to Afghanistan and run with the women and girls who run for freedom and equality. My question isn't, I can do this. It's, how can I help?
Yeah, great question. Great question. And what a creative thing you and your grandson did. That was amazing. That was, one thing about COVID times too, you're probably talking to people that before COVID you wouldn't have talked to, right? Like, I'm talking to, I had a great conversation with this Dr. Akwar Halonga from Africa about water and creating, he built this nano filter to deliver clean water to communities in Africa, right? Well, before COVID times, I probably never that wouldn't have happened, but send him a little note and he comes online and we have a chat, right? It's that easy.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So we did not talk. You had just mentioned about Afghanistan and the show that you had that I was able to watch is wonderful, beautiful story. And really, what a messed up thing where girls are yelled at and spat on and called terrible names if they try and run. Like, I don't get it. But you're raising awareness. Tell us about that. You're the Afghanistan and encouraging the girls to get more opportunities to run and trying to change that culture.
Yeah, Alan, it was it's been quite a journey. In early of 2000 and gosh, what was it now? 15. I was diagnosed with a massive clot on the brain, and I was in Winnipeg. I was going to give a keynote presentation at a conference, and I didn't feel well. I had a massive headache, and I was taken to the Grace Hospital. They did a CT scan and found this clot literally plugging my head in my brain. And so I was in hospital for 2 weeks. Everything changed from all these marathons suddenly to I needed help to go 20 feet from the bathroom from the bedroom to the bathroom, from the bed to the bathroom. So, my world changed upside down. I came back to Calgary. I was literally just was on a cocktail of drugs, and I could only just look out the window. I mean, it was just everything changed. I started walking and slowly getting back a little bit. But then in October of 2015, my wife gave me an article from the Guardian newspaper, and it was about the very first Afghan woman. Her name was Zainab, to run a marathon. And I love marathons. I've done a few of them, right? So
yeah, exactly.
I read this article and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. But then I read some of the challenges that Zainab had to deal with. And when I run, my challenges are hydration, nutrition, the weather, getting blisters. But for Zainab, it was facing verbal and physical abuse. The men would yell at her, get off the streets, you're a prostitute. They'd call her names. And then they would throw rocks at her to stop her running. But that didn't stop Zainab. She went back to her home and she ran inside her walled garden, around and around and around. And she trained. And in October 2015, she was the very first Afghan woman to run a marathon. And, when I read that, and I was in recovery from this clot, it really struck a chord with me. I was so upset that a young woman, a female, was being abused for running, but males could run. It just didn't compute with me. And so I said to my wife, Sue, if I get better and if I can run again, and if I can run a marathon, I'm going to go to Afghanistan and I am going to support Zainab and I'm going to run for the women who want to run for freedom and democracy. And 1 year later, Alan, I was on a plane to Kabul.
Amazing story, amazing recovery, man. You must have had some pretty bleak times there when like all of a sudden you're so fit and so active, and all of a sudden you have your brain blowing up on you.
It was very scary, and
yeah.
even when I went to Afghanistan in October of 2016, I was just finishing the medication, and so I arrived there, and we took a film crew. You mentioned the Secret Marathon film, which you've seen. So Kate McKenzie, the co-director of the film, she went and she ran her first marathon there. And it ended up that Zainab couldn't go. There was reasons, and security is always a challenge in Afghanistan. But I did meet a young woman named Kubra, and she wanted to do the marathon. But 4 months before, one of her best friends was killed in a bombing at her school, and so she hadn't trained. But I talked to Kubra. I said, "Look, Kubra, if you and I try and do this together, maybe we can do it." Mm-hmm. And so she said, oh, she was so happy. So we started the race. It was a 7-hour security cutoff. We reached the halfway mark at 3 hours and 36 minutes. We were behind, but Kubra just dug in, resilience, persistence. And we crossed in 6 hours and 52 minutes, Alan. We did it by 8 minutes.
Woohoo! Nice.
8 minutes, we made it. And what I learned there was I just saw the resilience of this young woman and the determination. And all she was looking for was a chance to try and achieve her goal. And I went back actually 2 years later to Afghanistan. I ran with a group of young women and girls. And we ended up running this very difficult marathon on the trails. And the two youngest runners, they were Anita and Sonia. They were sisters. They were 16 and 14, and they finished the marathon in 8 hours and 46 minutes. And the cutoff was 9 hours. And again, they inspired me. I think that's the thing. When I work with children, when we link, they inspire me with what they do. And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Speaking of the secret marathon, is there further airings of the secret marathon, or when do those happen, or how would somebody get a chance to watch it? It was a great show. Really enjoyed it. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you, we are offering screenings, so you can go online and you can, get a screening. And so, if you go to the secretmarathon.com, just go on there, and there'll be a link where you can request a screening for the film.
yes, exactly. And it was well worth your time and effort. It was a great show. Now, just back to the Secret Marathon. The young woman who was going to run in it, was she the one that was kind of like sequestered in her cave? She wouldn't leave the cave because she was so fearful of, is that the one?
No, let's talk about that particular piece in the movie. And I think it's very relevant with what we're talking about today.
Yes.
It really highlights some really super difficult issues. So before the marathon, a couple of days before, I was taken by a guide to a group of caves. Now, in this town of Bamiyan, where the race was held, it's 140 kilometers northwest of Kabul, and it's in the foothills of the Hindu Kush Mountains. A very beautiful place. You could almost compare it to, Calgary or Cochrane in the foothills of the Rockies. It's stunning. But the elevation is 9,000 feet, significantly higher than where we are in Cochrane or Calgary. But what they have there is an amazing physical structure, which is a massive cliff just outside of town. And there were on the cliff, there were two Buddhas that had been cut out and installed, 50 meters tall. But these two Buddhas were blown up by the Taliban in 2001. And so this area is, it's been under a lot of security issues. But one thing that there was on this cliff was a huge number of caves, because it's in sandstone. And way back in history, it was the holy men who would live there. And just a point of interest, Alan, there was some archaeological dig there, and they found the oldest oil painting there in one of those caves in the world.
Whew.
Okay, it was found in Afghanistan, not in Rome, not in Greece, not in some of these other countries. In Afghanistan, it just shows the history where we think we're so advanced and we're leading the way. Well, in many ways, that's kind of fleeting. And Afghanistan and this town of Bamiyan is a case in point. It's on the Silk Route. And in the past, it was the number one trading route. And so they had silks and art and so on. But, things have changed. So now these caves are the home to internally displaced people. Okay, so this is folks, Afghan people, who have been persecuted by their own people. So they end up in Bamiyan, they go to the caves. And what you saw, Alan, was a cave where there was a family, a mother living with 5 children. And the woman you saw was a teacher. Her name was Fadista, so she was a teacher, and there was the mother and the 5 kids. And you saw a little girl there. She was 7, and a year before she had been traumatized by a IED, an individual explosive device, and caused brain damage. And this little girl was living in a cave with brain damage. And again, it just ripped my heart out to have to leave that cave and that situation. However, I went around the corner with Fadista, the teacher, and there in front of me was another cave with a door with 20 little pairs of shoes. And we went into the school in the cave. And you saw that, Alan. You saw those little kids age 3 to 11 who are trying to get an education in that cave through that teacher. And again, it just says to me, it's very difficult. Mm-hmm. And these children, what can we do to help? How can we help? And especially, I think, leading to what you're talking about, how can we help these children reach their potential? And I think that's and I think you're probably going to touch on it. When children are damaged in the ways that you're talking about, we take away their potential or potentially reduce it. I don't want to say take away, because I think you'll talk about it, ways that we can help. And I think that's absolutely key.
Yeah. I think that's super important, because my guru, Dr. Bruce Perry, talks about, challenges with individuals who have been traumatized in their youth. And he's the author of The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Are you familiar with the book, Martin?
I'm not, no.
Okay. So basically the title story is a boy who's raised as a dog. This young woman had a child, couldn't care for the child, gave the child to her mother. Her mother was in her 60s and obese and very ill, and then lived a couple of years and then died. So now there's this child, and the actual birth mother is out of the picture, and the mother, who was obese and old and died, gives the child to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend knows nothing about children. He knows about dogs. So he raises the child as a dog. And then in raising the child as a dog, letting him out with putting him in a cage and letting him out to run around with the other dogs and feeding him dog food and, those kind of things. No big surprise. The child doesn't learn how to walk, doesn't learn how to speak, can't connect with humans, right? I mean, so Dr. Perry comes into this. So you'd think, oh my goodness, this is over. This child is brain damaged and never going to recover. But with the right treatments and the right protocols, he makes this amazing recovery with this individual, to the point where now he wants to have a relationship with he wants to be married, and he wants to go to university, and he has the capacity to do it. So this great story of hope, right? And a lot of the things that Dr. Perry stresses are just the informal supports of that caring adults can assist with just by being there. Your situation about your table tennis thing, you made a huge impact on those kids' life. Those 100 kids, you made a big difference in their lives just having that 30-minute experience with them, right? And so in a similar way, sometimes a little person, all they need is somebody to say, hey, Timmy, I see you, nice haircut, and, have a good day, buddy. And, something like that. Those kind of little acts of empathy and kindness have a huge way in terms of encouraging a little person who's going through some real tough times.
Well, I think, and the name of your program, 1,000 Ways to Be a Champion for Children. I mean, do you have a book?
No.
Well, you should do, because I think that's, something like that, where it's doable things. I think that's where people get a little bit overawed, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. It's too big. Break it down into chunk-sized pieces. When I run a marathon, I don't think of the marathon. I don't think of the 42.2 kilometers. I think of 10 minutes. That's it. And in those 10 minutes, I run 9 and I walk 1. And that's all I think about. And I do it again. And I do it again. And I think that's something that I think with what we're talking about today, have a little piece, do something, try one thing. Don't get overawed, don't get discouraged, but you've got to do something. And I mean, Alan, you got to write a book, man.
Well, I thank you for that encouragement. I will take that under advisement. Speaking of that, how many books have you written? You've written.
Well, funny you should ask. All right.
Yes.
So I've written 3. So this is the first one, Marathon Quest.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the one about running the 250 marathons.
Right.
The second one is,
which also, that's a Guinness World Record, correct? 250
no,
marathons?
No, Alan, no. And I wish it was. It's not. No, it's not, because they weren't all official marathons.
Oh, right. You went to the school. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got 6 Guinness World Records. I think you can see just in the background.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I can see him there. Yes. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I've got 6, but that's not one of them. So that's just the way it is. But that was for running the 250 marathons, is that book. The second book is Running to the Edge. Running to the Edge.
Got it.
That was about when I had the clot on the brain.
Okay.
And just the challenges that I had with that. And also some of the prior fundraising I had done by doing the 6 Guinness World Records, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in 21 hours, running the coast of England, doing 10 quests in 5 years, and raising $1.3 million. So that's that one. Then the next one is the Secret Marathon.
Aha. Okay.
Alan,
this is most recent.
The most recent, and this talks about the film, obviously, and some of the background. But what I'm most proud about is that there are 6 chapters in the book written by the Afghan women themselves.
Oh, nice. Get their perspective, first person.
Well, this is it. I can't write about their stories. 2 of them wrote in English, sent me the chapters in English. 2 of them, my wife Sue transcribed from a Skype call in Kabul. a Skype call in Kabul that she recorded and transcribed. And then two of them, they sent me their chapters in Dari, and we got a friend to translate. So those chapters are right from the heart, Alan. They're right from the heart, and it's raw and it's very tough, but it's what they experience before the marathon, during the marathon, afterwards. So that's the third book. And I've got to give you a news flash.
Okay.
News flash. There is another book coming out.
Nice.
In the fall, and it's called The Ageless Athlete. Age is just a number.
Ooh, nice. Love that one.
That's going to be interesting. And that's about a challenge I took on a couple of years ago where, and this is a personal challenge, where back in 2003, at the age of 47, I ran my four fastest times in the 5K, the 10, the half marathon, the marathon. And I didn't run any faster. And so I decided 15 years later to try and beat those 4 times. And it's a story about how I hired a coach and, try to do things to help me take it back, to see if I could turn back the hands of time with my running. But I won't tell you what happened.
Okay. All right. That's the suspense. You need to buy the book if you want the details on that, when it's available.
Alan, the only thing I say is, and it's a quote from Nelson Mandela, I never lose. I either win or learn. And trust me, that with that book, I learned a lot.
You know what? I've used that a whole bunch of times. I never lose. I either win or I learn. I didn't know who it was, but that Nelson Mandela is who said that.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Well, thanks for the education that way. That's great.
You're welcome.
Yes. And where do people buy your books, Martin?
Well, the simplest thing is to go to a bookstore, any bookstore, online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So they're all there. So no problem at all. Just Google this, the name, The Secret Marathon, or, Google myself, and you'll be able to find them.
So even to be remotely close to where you were 15 years ago with your records, your best times, would be a pretty big achievement, because most people don't look at their health that way. They look at they're not today. If it's been 15 years, they look at they're not as healthy, not as vibrant, not as well today as they were 15 years ago.
Okay, Alan, but I need to step in here. Okay, I think we put our own barriers in our own way. All right. I think we tend to say, I can't do this. This is gone, and I don't disagree. I mean, let's be clear. It's 15 years is 15 years. But what happens is, if you try it, there will be outcomes that you didn't expect. And I want to be clear. All you can do is try. And I think personally, I've reached the point now where it's more of I'll try and do against myself rather than other people. I mean, that, other people, I got no control. But maybe there's things I can do for my health, for my fitness, for, helping my physical and mental health, that I can do that will help me whether or not I achieve the goal. And I think that's where we got to be really careful, is saying, oh, I can never do that, so I'm not going to even try. Well, if you don't try, you don't get anywhere. So if you try, I think there are positives, even if you don't hit the particular targets that you were thinking of.
But you're also, I mean, you have some super coaching in terms of your doctor and him being a big time athlete as well, and coaching you and helping you as well to assist you in achieving the best health. Like, I mean, nobody gets there. The health is like, perfect health is an illusion, but it's something we all, if we're working on and makes tweaks, we can get closer to, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. But again, I think we got to be a little careful about what we're trying to attain here.
Okay.
I get help. I got help from Dr. Hanlon, who was the doctor who got me through my medical situations. When I tried to beat my four best times, I got a friend, a top coach, and I learned a lot from him. But I think be careful what you deem success and failure. I think that journey, and it's in the book, that I took, and again, I can't tell you what happened, but I learned so much about running, about data collection, about health, about stretching. All these things I learned was a huge benefit whether or not you achieve the goal. And so, again, I think in our society, and we might be going a little bit off target here, but maybe not, we're so goal orientated, and either you're a winner or you're a loser. And the problem is that's not the way it is.
No.
And I think we've been handicapped with that thinking by saying, well, if I can't do it, I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that comes in with, I think, a little bit with what we're talking about today, with helping children and making a difference.
Yes.
There's no magic wand to this. There's no one thing does all. But just go with your gut feeling. If you can lend a hand,
Yeah.
and just do it. Like, don't overthink it. Just give it a try.
Yeah. Do what you can do as long as you're not causing any harm. Like maybe you're not going to achieve an amazing result, but you're going to make it a little bit better. Right. And if it's that much better, that's a good thing. So
I'm thrilled. If it's that much better, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I got to tell you, my health is very, very good. It's actually I think it's the best it's ever been. Not that I'm running marathons, but my friend, Dr. Perry there, when he was talking about the treatments that he had for people, he would often use music and movement, right? And he talks about what regulates is things that are rhythmic and repetitive. Those are things that regulate, right? Activities. And so I interpret that to mean dancing and singing. So now this is my exercise, is dancing and singing. And for me, that works really well with my body. And it's something I really enjoy. So it's something easy to do. Like, I mean, I could never run a marathon. And
well, I think, no, Alan, no, hang on, don't, stop. You don't say you never run a marathon. My wife, Sue, started running at 52 and she ran a marathon at 58. So let's not go there. One thing I want to say is, you talked about the what was it with dancing and singing, the kind of the rhythm.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that it regulates. Go ahead.
What is more repetitive than running?
True.
It's perfect. You get in that cadence. You do that run. For me, my running is meditation. I mean, when I run, I don't listen to music. I'll be honest with you, but I listen to the birds and the river and what's outside. And I hear that pat, 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 that running cadence, and I get in a rhythm. And for me, it's for my mental state. And so I would say dance and music, right? And running, Alan.
And running. Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. I accept your gentle correction, Martin. And also, I'm sure, so it sounds like for you, running is kind of meditative in nature. It's like you're in a flow state. You're aware of where you are. You hear everything. You are very aware of your breath. Maybe you're aware of your heartbeat. You're very, very, very connected with your body when you're running.
Absolutely. It's just how you feel. Temperature comes into it. Do I have the right gear on? How am I feeling? I run on grass, run on different surfaces. You really do connect. I mean, that's the one thing with running and dancing. You do connect with the earth, and I think that's very cool.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. You're in your club with Rotary are on a mission to learn more about First Nation ways and ways that perhaps we as Rotarians can be of service above self and be of assistance in facilitating, encouraging, healing and a reduction in discrimination and an increase in empathy and an increase in health for all of us, but especially for our First Nations brothers and sisters. Have you had any major insights from your experience that way?
I think it's a journey. And in our club in Cochrane, we're only 30 kilometers from the Stoney Nation with the three tribes there, with the Wesley, the Chiniki, and the Baseball. And quite frankly, we need to build better relationships. There's no other way of putting it. It's just not acceptable. And so not that long ago, there was an initiative that was brought forward, and one of a couple in our club, Michael and Judy Bopp, have extensive experience both in this country and overseas with working with Indigenous communities. And we worked with the town of Cochrane, and we worked with elders from Morley, and we had a 7-module Indigenous learning process, and it was pretty deep. Each session was 3 hours, and we learned about the history and about the absolutely disgraceful destruction of a group, and we learned the journey these people have been on. We also did the blanket exercise, which is, if people haven't done it, absolutely, I mean, it's amazing. And then the last module, we went to Morley, and we went to a prayer circle, a very sacred prayer circle. And again, we spent time listening. I think that's the one thing, again, I would say is super important, is for us to listen. And we had, in a very conversational style, we had elders come from Morley and share their stories with us, and we sat in the circle. And so that had a profound effect on me. And it's something that we're building on, and we're looking for other Rotary clubs to get involved. And this is a priority for Rotary to understand and to listen, and not to say we know how to fix this. It's what can we do? Mm-hmm. Let's be open to this. And so it's a journey, Alan, and I think it's not simple, but we can do it. Rotary as an organization, I feel, can be part of this in a very good way. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm sure we as Rotarians, but not just Rotarians, can certainly make a huge advantage or a huge reconciliation in our relationships and a moving forward of to a better life for all of us, right? Yeah. I mean, our society is composed of the people in our society and what kind of lives they have, and the better lives that they have, the better lives we all have. The better health that they have, the better health we all have, right? Certainly I'm aware of that from COVID times. Our health is very much interconnected worldwide. Right. I mean, that's kind of the reality of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So we talked about your books. We talked about the secret marathon. Man, what else we got 7 minutes left. What else should we chat about?
Gosh, good question. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've been to Africa. We've been to Afghanistan. We've talked about Indigenous communities. We talked about health.
Yes.
Gosh, I don't know, Alan. I mean, I'm on a journey with Rotary, which I'm enjoying. Meeting folks like you, and trying to make a difference in our community. Just being local in Cochrane, looking at ways of giving back in Cochrane. We do in Rotary, we do some great stuff overseas, which is fantastic. But I think the heart and soul of and I will talk about Rotary is community projects and fellowship. And I think that's the two things that are most important for Rotarians. And I do want to put a plug here for people who don't belong to Rotary, and do consider looking at this organization. It's an amazing organization. It's global, and we really haven't talked in detail about Rotary, Alan, as yet. So with my 6 minutes left.
Well, yeah, and let's just interject. You are district governor nominee, correct?
District governor-elect. So I'm
district governor-elect. Pardon me.
Yeah. No. So as of July the 1st, I'm the district governor. And so, for example, in our district 5360, we have over 1,600 members. We have 45 Rotary clubs, 4 Rotaract clubs, and then which is sort of a younger or a slightly different group, where from 18 to 30. Interact, which is the high school students, and then we have Early Act, which is the youngest students, and that's a group that again we kind of touch on. And so there's a really good core group in our district. We go from beyond Red Deer down to the US border, and then across from Banff to Medicine Hat. And so that's just one district, and in the world there are 534 districts. And so it's a big organization, but it's all around the club. So wherever you are, almost guaranteed, Alan, you'll be fairly close to a Rotary club. So if you're interested, do check them out. Just wherever you are in your town, Google, Rotary Club, and they meet weekly. At the moment it's on Zoom, but that's fine. And get in contact, and maybe it's something you want to check out, because it does bring a lot to you as an individual in giving back. I mean, it's been proven that giving back helps you physically, mentally. It does. There's a lot of positives in us helping others. And so, yeah, I think that's something I kind of want to share with us.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea. Because I mean, and again, you had touched on this. We do a lot of things internationally. Rotary does, but a focus, it seems now, I'm sensing more of a renewed interest in local projects and making a difference in our local community, which to me is very inspiring, right? I would love to see that we are doing things, and in doing things, we impact the life of people in our community now, and we see that progress in our community, right? We see them better able to enjoy better health and a better life and better relationships and better ability to contribute to their community because their needs are being met. So I think that's a huge deal in terms of encouraging that. So
absolutely. I mean, it's like we talked about during an earlier part of this this session today, is again, we're kind of handing the baton. We're handing over some of our knowledge, our experiences. You know, we're giving it, and I think that's, by giving, we just get so much anyway. But if we can give in different ways, it only, and let's be clear, Ron, we're on one planet. I mean, this is it as far as I'm concerned. I don't think I'll be going to Mars or anything, living there, but we got one planet. And so, what can we do to help? I just, it's a bit beyond me how, some groups feel that, well, that's not where they're at, either, military or from a business point of view, they have a different view. I don't get it. I mean, simple as that. I just, we're not going to be here forever. And so you better decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
And, and I think you have to decide, you have to pick. So.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing about it too, if you think about it in a Rotary context, so you picked a part where you want to make a difference. If you engage with your Rotary Club members and they agree, they want to also pursue that, what happens? All of a sudden you've multiplied any change you could make. You can make this much change, but you got Rotary brothers and sisters on your team. All of a sudden it's huge, right? You can make a big difference.
Let's use an example right now. We're coming to the end, but to me, this is the classic, is the fight against polio.
Mm-hmm. Good example. Yes.
I mean, that is a disease that is debilitating. It's horrendous. And it was rife, a number of years ago. Rotary came on board and brought in other benefactors, one of them being the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And now we're down to just 2 countries that have polio, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And that was exactly what you're saying, Alan, where like-minded people got together and said, we have to stop this. What can we do? And it's been a tough trip. I mean, we're still not there, but we are.
From what, 87 we started? Is that correct?
I'm not sure, Alan, to be honest. If that's what it was, then we're this close now.
Yes.
And again, it just shows an incredible effort to fight something that individually we had no hope. Yeah. And polio is still impacted on people who live today. Let's be crystal clear on that.
Yes.
And we mustn't take it for granted that, well, we're done, it's finished. Things can come back. And I mean, obviously we're in a pandemic right now. And so, that's a great example of where getting together, picking a goal, and then applying a lot of good effort to it has made a huge impact.
You had mentioned the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their contribution, their buy-in to eradicating polio has been huge, right? I don't know what Rotary spent, $20 billion, and they've spent $50 billion, or I'm not sure of the numbers, but it's huge.
It's huge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so close to getting that gone.
So close.
Yeah, exactly. So, as Martin says, and this would be what he would say as being the leader of Rotary locally in District 5360, you should check out Rotary. And I agree. Rotary's a tool, an organization where you have some fellowship, you have the ability to make a difference in the world and to magnify whatever individual contribution you could do with your colleagues within Rotary. And Rotary is very accommodating. We are not just we're not representative of what Rotary looks like because we're old white guys, Martin. Sorry, but we're inclusive. If you look different than us, that's okay. If you talk different than us, that's all right. We still want you.
Please look different to us, eh? Don't you? But But no, it's about what's in here, guys. This is what counts. And how we're too quick to judge for a whole bunch of reasons, but it's what counts is actions and not talk. So judge people by their actions. And that's what I do. And I think then you'll know where people's hearts are and what they can give or not give. And so I think sometimes there's too much this and there's not enough of this listening. And I think we need more action to actually make a difference. So.
Well said, Martin Parnell. Thank you so much for being my guest on 1,000 Ways to be a Champion for Children. Very informative. You are an inspiration, my friend. We'll keep well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Alan, absolute pleasure, mate. You take care, okay?